Last morning in my house, tape, hissing off the roll cardboard towers, leaning by the door like they were bowing out with me. And across the hedge, my neighbor was already dialing 911 because a black man was loading his own boxes. My name is Calvin Dorsey, and I'm not here to make a speech. I'm here to tell you how a goodbye turned into a show for the whole block, and how dignity, the quiet kind, can be louder than a bullhorn. 12 years in Arlington, Texas, taught me the math of small cuts, a warning for the trash bin. Out a little late, a ticket for grass a half-inch high. A letter about a niece who parked in front of my own house for one night. You carry enough of those, and one morning you wake up heavy, not angry, yet just heavy. And all you want on moving day is a clean exit and a quiet engine. I had the room stripped down to memory and scuff marks every sound too big. The rip of tape, the thunk of a box, the scrape of a chair leg. When I heard the click of flats on concrete and felt the block hold its breath. Martha Kellerman khakis, pressed HOA logo on her polo like a badge sunglasses that looked more like a verdict than a lens marched up and pointed at the rental truck. This moving truck is not authorized. Did you submit the paperwork? I wiped sweat with the back of my hand and said, I'm moving out, Martha, not staging a parade. She didn't blink. That is not how this works. Large vehicles must be cleared, and frankly, I don't even know if this truck belongs here. I laughed the tired kind. I've lived here 12 years. It's my driveway, my truck, my boxes. Her lips thinned until they almost disappeared. Suspicious activity is suspicious activity. If you can't provide documents right now, I'll be calling this in. She had my name on a dozen notices, but she wanted proof I slept where I just took down family photos. You know what I mean. That old familiar sting, not because I was guilty, but because humiliation likes to find you on the day you pray. It doesn't. Crowds form fast when trouble promises a storyline. Ryan, the teenager across the street, came out with bedhead and his phone already rolling. A couple in slippers stalled on their porch. A pickup idled at the corner like its driver paid dues here. I kept lifting because boxes don't move themselves, and because sometimes silence is the only fence left to lean on. But Martha started narrating for the block like it was a public service announcement. You can keep moving if you like, but the police are on their way, and they don't take kindly to shady activity. Shady hung in the heat like July, and it didn't mean messy paperwork. It meant me the difference I carry everywhere. And yeah, that happened. I said, You've known me a decade. Martha, you taped half those warnings yourself, and still. I found myself explaining ownership of a home I just paid off, explaining a goodbye. No one else has to schedule, explaining why my truck belonged in my own drive. Gerald, the older neighbor, called from his porch. Martha, I've moved twice here and never got permission for a truck. Let the man go. She pointed without looking. Stay out of this, Gerald. The sedan I needed least and most turned the corner right. Then headlights sliding over the truck like a spotlight. And my son, Preston's, stepped out in his Arlington PD uniform, duty belt creaking from a long night badge flashing sun. Need a hand, Dad, he said. And something unclenched between my shoulders. He didn't puff up or bark. He offered his hand like I raised him to Officer Preston Dorsey, city police off shift, now here to help my father move. He showed his badge, his department-eyed. He said the words that should end any argument. You are welcome to call dispatch and confirm. I wish I could tell you, she checked. She tilted her head, looked past the metal to the crowd, and said louder, Nice costume, but I don't buy it until the real officers arrive. I'm treating both of you as trespassers. Preston stayed steady. Ma'am, Accusing someone of impersonating an officer is serious. I encourage you to call dispatch right now. Meanwhile, you are interfering with a lawful move on private property. Please step aside." She didn't step. She planted herself in front of the truck like a human gate palm on the hood. Chin high, and said, "This vehicle isn't going anywhere." The block went quiet enough that the cicadas sounded like sirens. Preston's voice dropped not louder. "Lower the tone you use when authority is the life jacket, not the wave. Ma'am, remove your hand from the vehicle and step back, last warning." She swatted at his hand. The badge popped against his chest. Ryan hissed, "Oh, man," into his phone, and something inside me slid from patience to a tired kind of anger that tastes like metal. "Stop resisting. Turn around, hands behind your back," Preston said. Smooth and practiced. No extra force. No show. She jerked away, shouting about fraud and harassment and how she ran this block, and he moved. The way 5 years of training teaches you, measured and controlled one wrist, then the other. The first cuff clicked like a gavel, hitting an old bruise. Not revenge, not triumph, more like relief braided with fear. "You are under arrest for obstruction and resisting," he said, reading Miranda. Because it matters, and she promised lawsuits, headlines, jobs lost by dinner, the whole script of a person who only knows power when someone else is small. The patrol car came in late, and loud lights painting the maple leaves. Officers Ramirez and Klein stepping out with the careful eyes of people who know phones are rolling. Ramirez looked from the cuffs to the badge to my face. "Morning, Hale. What do we have?" Preston kept it clipped. "Off-duty assisting my father. Subject obstructed a lawful move, ignored multiple warnings, struck my hand now under arrest badge, and ID presented dispatch. Verification offered, refused." Ramirez looked at me. "You the homeowner, sir?" "Yes." He scanned the crowd. "Anyone see different?" Gerald lifted a hand. She wouldn't even read his ID, put her hand on the hood. Hit him when he told her to move. Ryan raised the phone like a sworn statement. "Got the whole thing?" Klein folded his arms. Not tough, just planted. "Ma'am, you're the one in cuffs, and from what I'm hearing, those charges aren't going where you think." She rattled the cuffs and shouted about being the only one who cares about rules. The cruiser door closed on her voice like a lid on a pot that's been boiling too long. "If you're wondering about optics and conflict of interest, so were we." Ramirez asked it straight. "For the report, any concerns with you handling this arrest?" Preston didn't flinch. "I offered verification. I gave options. I warned her 3 times when she escalated to force and kept blocking my father's property. I acted, I'm available for review." Ramirez rubbed his forehead, nodded, and said, "The line the internet never finds sexy, because it's too simple. We'll take it from here. Later online strangers would split like they always do. Hero to some bias, to others. Arguments about policy and power, lighting up comment sections all over. But on that driveway, the story was smaller and heavier. Neighbors who had watched in silence watched with their voices on, and officers on scene did the quiet work of sorting facts from volume. They logged the footage, they spoke to witnesses. They told my son his actions were justified, and the car carrying Martha turned the corner and took a certain sound with it. The block actually exhaled. You could feel it in shoulders, dropping, and coffee finally making it to mouths. You could hear it in a laugh that sounded like someone setting down a heavy bag. Gerald shuffled over and stared at his shoes. "Calvin, for what it's worth. I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner. She's been on you for years." Silence is not neutral, Gerald, I said. But today you spoke, and he nodded. Like the truth had weight. Preston touched my shoulder. You good, Dad? I try to joke, because jokes sometimes keep us from crying. Son. She finally found a rule you wouldn't let her break. He smiled the tired smile cops wear when the adrenaline leaves. Let's get you out of here. We loaded the last boxes in a quiet that felt earned. I touched each door frame like it was a cheek and said thank you under my breath, not to the drywall. Exactly, more to the good days that happened anyway. In the truck, I looked once at the porch, where I'd learned to swallow so many words, and decided to keep only the ones that help. We rolled away, and the house shrank to a shape without a voice. That night, we sat at my new place with boxes still breathing cardboard, and we had the hard talk fathers and sons have when life doesn't hand you clean answers. Should you have waited for another unit, I asked. Should you have stepped back? He said I offered verification. I gave choices. I set the line 3 times. She crossed it and hit my hand and kept blocking your property. I acted. I did it calm. You know what I mean. I did, and it still hurt. That it had to be him, and I was still proud. Here's what 12 years and 1 loud morning taught me: rules matter. But if you have to strip someone's dignity to apply them, you're not keeping order. You're keeping score. Community matters. But if community is just a chorus about grass height and mailbox paint, you don't have neighbors, you have referees, and dignity isn't a trophy. You win once it's the habit of holding your head high without pushing anybody else's down. So here's the part I won't tie with a bow, because real life leaves threads loose on purpose, so we'll keep talking. Was Preston right to make that arrest, or should he have stepped aside and waited? Where's the line between standards and obsession, between safety and suspicion, between caring about a neighborhood and needing to control it? Tell me in the comments what you've seen on your street. What felt fair? What went too far? What you wish someone had said out loud sooner? And if you believe these everyday stories matter, the ones about dignity bias and what community should mean, hit like, subscribe, share this with the friend who always has a take, and let's argue in a way that builds something better.